Yeah, okay. All right, it's 6:01. I'm calling to order the meeting for Thursday, August 15th. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Gentry, Mr. Guerin,
Here.
Mr. Troy, Mr. Quagliano, Mrs. Melendi, Mrs. Maiorino, Mr. Fleck.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. At 6:02, I will make a motion to go into closed session for the items listed in the agenda. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Melendi, and that's a roll call.
Mr. Quagliano, Mr. Fleck,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi, Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry, Mr. Troy, Mrs. Maiorino.
Okay, that motion carries. We are in closed session.
Testing, testing.
Okay, it's 7:02. We're out of closed session. We don't have any action to take out of closed session, so let's have a roll call.
Mrs. Maiorino. Mr. Fleck.
Here. Michael. Oh, okay.
Mr. Troy.
Here.
Mrs. Melendi. Mr. Guerin. Mr. Quagliano. Mr. Gentry.
Here. Okay, we're all here. With that, let's see. Let's go with student recognition by the Board of Education. So let's have our FBLA national competitors come on up. Okay, Miss Barty. I thought I saw her back there. Okay, there she is. That's before.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the green. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, I'm Kathy Barty, CTE Business Education Instructor and Co-Advisor of Future Business Leaders of America, a student organization also known as FBLA. Mrs. Sashwar, we call her Mrs. S, is also the co-advisor, and she's unable to attend tonight due to a family emergency, but her heart is with us. I want to thank you, all of you, for allowing us to present tonight and recognize these three awesome students right here that attended the National Leadership Conference in San Antonio, Texas this past summer. I'm very proud of them. I'm just so proud of these awesome students and what accomplishments they had done at nationals in Texas. I'm now going to turn over the podium to them so you can ask them all kinds of questions. And this is our FBLA President, Zachary Kriegler, our Vice President, Mateo Hernandez, and we have Joanne Zavala, who actually won an award that she has as well.
So I'm just going to say little things about our club before we get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Zach Kriegler, President of Huntley High School FBLA Student Organization. FBLA is the largest student-led business organization in the world. FBLA has more than 200,000 members, 5,200 chapters, and is located in 47 states and 7+ countries. This year, we had 5 FBLA members from our local chapter qualify for the National Leadership Conference held from June 29th to July 2nd in San Antonio, Texas. Over 13,000 students competed from around the world in over 72 categories. Of the 5 members, 3 attended NLC. Mateo Hernandez, myself, competed in sports and entertainment management competition. Jillian Savala competed in journalism and placed 5th in the nation. Also, 2 members who qualified for NLC were unable to attend were Samia Desai, she competed in job interview, and Cindy Plant, sales presentation. I'm going to turn it over to the Vice President, Mateo Hernandez.
We'd like to thank our parents, Mr. Beelan, Mr. Kemp, Mrs. Shoshuari, and Miss Barty, and everyone who has supported us with their experience at NLC. Thank you, and we're now open to questions.
No, I just did. So what was the biggest thing you got out of going to the conference, each one of you?
The biggest thing we got out of going to this conference was just the opportunity that we were blessed with because we were able to connect with many different people from all across the world. Like, we connected with people from China FBLA, we connected with people with Puerto Rico FBLA, and it was just awesome to hear their stories and how they've grown their chapter, and to take that as motivation to kind of make ours similar or make it even better just to stand out. What would you guys?
Yeah, it was just a great overall experiment with the amount of competition we were faced with, and that really helped us grow, learn, and develop our leadership skills.
Like Zach said, it was a wonderful, almost once-in-a-high-school experience. And I'm just super grateful that you guys were able to send us there. And not only that we were able to meet so many people, but also gain valuable leadership experience by communicating with other chapters.
I'm just curious, what do all of you want to do when you get out of high school? What career path are you going to take?
So I actually want to work in the hedge fund industry and work with finance. So yeah, kind of like trading stocks and ETFs and different investment vehicles right now, just to better my understanding.
After high school, I want to probably go into something in finance or accounting. The end goal is to be a CFO, but you always just got to push yourself harder and work harder to get to that position. It's not easy, but just right now, finance or accounting is probably the route that I'm going to take.
I'm actually the odd one out. I plan to go into bioengineering. I'm super interested in research and especially in the medical field. So I'm hoping I can use my education in the medical academy to further pursue that.
Me too. Tell me about the competition you were in and whether you were nervous. What did you do?
We'll go first. Yeah. So Mateo and I, we were tasked with creating a presentation, a sales pitch within 20 minutes. So before, like, leading up to the conference that we went to in San Antonio, we had no idea what we were going to talk about, what we were going to be tasked with. We had 20 minutes to prepare, like, a case study and a pitch, kind of similar like a show like Shark Tank. And so for state, at least, we had to come up with an idea to promote a local, like, recreational center, like youth development for sports, and we had to just kind of think on our feet and kind of use some of those skills to pitch an idea to a council and a judge. And
Overall, really, we just mastered sports entertainment marketing, so we were ready, and management, so we were ready to go in there and accomplish this case study. Preparing was pretty tough. We spent hours and hours studying, lots of caffeine. I read a whole Harvard business book on leadership on the plane, so yeah, it was a lot of work, but it was a good experience.
Lots of flashcards, because something that's hard to prepare for, so you just have to kind of be ready and kind of think and have like an outline and set like your goals with that and kind of work around that. So overall, it was a great experience. It kind of teaches you like the out of the ordinary, not this is the presentation like a dual slides. It was kind of think on your feet and all that stuff. Do you want to talk about your thing?
I feel a little awkward without doing that. So my event was a little bit different. FBLA has a couple different types of competitive events. There's a huge variety, but you can basically subdivide them into test events and then speaking events. Zach and Mateo did a speaking event, so it's into entertainment management. My event was a test event, and it was on journalism, which I mainly chose because I took interest in news media and I thought it would be convenient. I didn't have a formal study guide for my event, which was fairly tricky. I ended up using around 8 different Quizlet sets to try and study, which turned out fairly well, I'd say. Pardon? But yeah, it was, like they said, it was a great opportunity. It really tested not only one certain section of media and journalism, but it also kind of delved into the economic side, the political side, areas of journalism that most people wouldn't ordinarily consider, but still play a major part in our day-to-day life.
From the international side, you said you interacted with groups from other countries. Any takeaways as far as how their perspectives may differ and how they approach the same topics?
It was really interesting because how we met these folks from different countries was just on a bus, like just going back from the conference center back to our hotel and just like reaching out to them, and like people were saying that that was their first time like out of their country, like out of their homeland. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting to see like how like different opportunities and how like really like down to earth people they are, and like how normal people could come together and just do big things. And it's like interesting because it just allows you to work harder and motivates you, because when you think about it, all these kids are around the same age as us. They have like a 4-year span, and so it kind of motivates you for next time, and like thinking about it in the future when you're going for a job in like the business world or engineering world. It just motivates you to see that people have the same goals as you, and just allows you and challenges you to work harder for the future.
Yeah, I would say it's not just international, but even in our states alone. We met a lot of different people, for instance, from Louisiana, like do different things. They do different things for fun. Even people from Illinois, like we met people from Southern Illinois, where we call Chicago the city, they call St. Louis the city, just things like that, which was, eye-opening.
Definitely agree with what everyone already said. I have sort of an odd anecdote to start off with this. There was a team building workshop which I attended, and a fun game to see how everyone around the United States plays rock, paper, scissors. It sounds incredibly mundane when you first mention it, but when you start playing rock, paper, scissors, some people apparently in other states say rock, paper, scissors, say shoot, which was very unusual for me, but basically everyone had different mannerisms, the different, like, you would almost say cultures that were ingrained to their day-to-day life, and everything that seemed so normal to them could still seem foreign to us. And it was really valuable to take a look at all those different viewpoints and almost meld them together to find something bigger, better, and something we can all learn from.
So how does this prepare your children for the school year now that's coming up? What is this going to bring back to the school?
That was a great question. So throughout this conference, and we attended multiple conferences, not just the national one, but we attended the state one, the area one, and also the summer leadership workshop. And it allows you to bounce back different ideas, how for our chapter we could grow and how we could get each student and every student involved. Because being a member is one thing, but then taking that next step and being involved is another thing. That's what we want to push. And so it was awesome just talking to different chapters and different clubs like Wakanda and Stevenson, how they grow their chapters of 200 students, and how our chapter currently of 45 students, and how we could have more students be involved. And the different ideas that we shared and like the types of ideas that we like bonded over was phenomenal. It was an experience that I would definitely remember for the future, growing my leadership skills in the classroom and also beyond in the workforce.
I think the workshops there are very beneficial because they help open your eyes and gave you different opportunities and little assets to you to give you more information on building your future. Like for instance, there was a really helpful workshop for me that was on entrepreneurship in high school and how it can help you get into an Ivy League school. And like the people teaching it were like they went to like Duke and different Ivy League schools, and they're helping you. And they're like, oh, we can give you your email. You can email us if you have any questions on how to start a nonprofit company and things like that, which are really helpful if you have those big dreams.
One of the things I love about FBLA is even though I'm going into the medical/engineering field, it teaches soft skills, and career skills that are applicable in any context. So whether you're a high school student, whether you're going into the financial sector, whether you're going into engineering like me, it teaches you skills like communication, clear communication with others, leadership, and time management, all things that you can use in both day-to-day high school life and in your future, whatever career you choose to take.
Okay, so maybe the final question is, after this experience, were you able to work the incubator into your schedule and until you're taking that course?
I'll speak on the behalf of that. So I'm actually involved with Incubator. It's my second day, completed the second day. It's a phenomenal course. I'm glad Huntley High School has adapted to it because it's only the second day, but I could just see like the possibilities and how like the teaching is just a different style, and it's like different, and it's a good difference though, and like how it's gonna translate into like possibly an entrepreneur or different product is phenomenal. And I like the classroom itself. They did a wonderful job of putting it together, and just the different activities that we do and how it's like separates from those traditional history science courses is awesome. I'm looking forward to like the year of opportunity in that class.
Unfortunately, I was not able to. I mean, I don't even have a lunch this year. Junior year, I'm working really hard. But next year...
Mateo, we're glad you have a lunch too.
But next year, I will definitely. I plan on... Like, it's a big entrepreneurship class, and I think that's really big and important for business. And, like, next year, I really plan on taking the Series 66 exam after I'm 18 and maybe use an incubator to start that up.
Personally, I'm not in the incubator class. However, I can definitely see all the practical applications and the huge potential it has for not only this year's students, but any other students that choose to take incubator, especially when the students that have taken the class graduate, well, not necessarily graduate, but they're there and they have that support system for others who want to take the class, and they can kind of describe what the whole experience is like, which I think will encourage even more students to take it.
Let's say the pledge and then we'll say the pledge and then we'll have a class that we take a good time.
We'll put them down front. I'll grab a picture and then you can come back.
Yep.
Just in their involvement with FBLA. So we'll start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then before we wrap up, we just want to congratulate Mr. Creek. Can you please come forward on behalf of Huntley High School FBLA? We would like to recognize the Huntley Athletic Boosters for all their support in providing a fundraising opportunity and teaching us how to run a concession stand during volleyball games. We also want to especially thank Mr. Jeff Jenkins, Miss Dana Wiley, and many other booster members who helped us succeed throughout the school year. Thank you all for your time. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All right. That was awesome. That was wonderful. Mr. Armstrong, do we have any public comment?
I see none.
Okay, then we shall move on. Have revision and adoption of the agenda. Once again, have tried to take my notes. So, okay, Ms. Lombard, do you have a report? Okay. Dr. Schlichter? Mr. Zaire? Dr. Budzinski? Mr. Altmeyer? Okay. We have something in community relations. I do have something on legislation. Dr. Rowe, you have a report? Okay. And I don't have a president's report at all. So with that, I will make a motion to revise and adopt the agenda with the removal of items 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 17. Second from Ms. Melendi. Voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Let's see. 10, 11, 12, 13. Number 14, community relations. Mr. Armstrong.
You have the FOIA report in the packet. I'd be happy to take any questions on that.
Any questions on the FOIA report? Okay, thank you. Number 15, that I just want to report that the governor signed some, this is getting a lot of press and everything, but there is some legislation that's going to require all schools to have LGBTQ history taught, and that's something that's going to be added to the curriculum as well. So that's just a recently signed. I think it was signed this week. Legislation. That's it for legislation. Any questions on that? All right. I'll turn it over to Dr. Rowe, Superintendent's report.
All right, and my report this evening is centered around the start of the school year. We welcome staff back. We welcomed back over 1,300 employees, 65 of those employees being new staff members to the district on Monday. And as I toured the buildings, we did not have a district kickoff this year because, as you know, we began a number of new initiatives last year and wanted our buildings to be able to implement what they were focused on, and with the continuation of that work, there was no major district push necessary. So I had the opportunity of just going around and attending most of the building kickoffs, and I was very pleased to see a theme emerge amongst all of our buildings, and that was one of which caring for the social emotional well-being of our students. There was a definite theme everywhere I went. It was about teachers, from Chesapeake being superheroes to their theme, to Mr. Venetico at Marlowe, and seeing how teachers fighting for students in terms of their well-being and understanding the why behind the things that they present to us. We don't get to pick the students who come, but we do get to pick how we interact with them and hopefully the end product that we move on to the next level. Also on that first day, we annually do our safety trainings that Mr. Dean coordinates with all of the different public entities from Huntley, Algonquin, Lake in the Hills. And a huge thank you goes out to all three of those police departments, as well as the McHenry County Sheriff's Department, for their coordination of our active shooter drills. We did a number of different things this year and created some scenarios for our staff to be trained in, and focused our time on reflection and the thought process behind what to do in a situation and how should I be thinking, what options do I have. It was very well received. To commend Mr. Dean on the approach. Our staff members recognize that although none of us enjoy having to go through these trainings, but it is the world that we live in, and they feel as prepared as they can be given an emergent situation. And then yesterday and today, we welcome back all of our students, which is really the most fun part of what we do. These couple of days really do set the tone for the school year. So we welcome back just over 9,000 students to the school district. 590 of those students were kindergartners that came today. And being able to, all the Huntley area fire department was at all of our buildings, high-fiving kids as they come in. Real sense of community in all of our buildings today. There were tears to be shed, mostly that of parents, but a lot of brave 5-year-olds entered the building and had smiles the entire day. So it was a very positive experience. The school year started without a hitch. Transportation ran very smoothly. And also commend Ms. Lombard and Laura Hooper and Jen Heinrich for the work that they've done to ensure a smooth start of transportation. On the first day of kindergartners, and I believe Chesapeake, we released buses today 3 minutes behind where we did on day one without kindergartners, which is a really big deal. So it was extremely efficient. Students all arrived to and home safely, and I'm very happy to post that there were no social media posts about our transportation today, which is a huge win for us all, and a big pat on the back goes to that transportation department. So to culminate my report, we are off and running to another fantastic school year in Huntley 158.
I'm sorry, any questions on that? No? It's good to hear that we're off to such a great start. I'm sure this will continue on through the whole year. Now we have item 18, consent items. All right. So they're not listed here, so I don't know if we have anything to remove from the consent agenda. Okay. Now the all right, usually they're sub-items. Okay, is there anything that anybody wants to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, then I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Okay, second from Mr. Quagliano. This is a roll call.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mrs. Scheiblein, Mr. Fleck.
Yes. Okay. Then let's move on to, we got some policy updates here under 19. So, Ms. Myrino, guideline, this is you.
Sorry. The first thing that we have is a press policy revision. Dr. Lowe, if you-
Nothing really to add in terms of press policy, as mentioned in the committee of the whole meeting. These should be the consent items.
Yeah,
that's approved.
they're all approved.
18, 19, 20, and 21 are all just
We just,
Yeah, you're on one
23.
action item, 22.
Well, I think they should. We just approved them technically.
Okay. Well, we did go over these in committee of the whole, so everything is.
Let's do them again.
Hold on. Calling an audible here.
You can, yeah, they can jump.
Okay.
You should just jump to 22.
Okay, let's jump to 23. I'm sorry, let's jump to 23, yeah, now. Okay. Okay. Let's go to Dr. Rowe with the strategic planning measures.
All right. So in the link, we have our strategic planning measures for the 18-19 school year that we're looking to approve. I'm very happy to report that throughout the multitude of reports that you'll hear tonight, the district, as a district, we met 91% of the measures that we set out to meet. We're extremely proud of that. We will highlight some of the points in each of the sub goals that you did not receive in-person reports to. So some of the areas that we worked on, we were providing updates throughout. If a report was delivered to the board, we can certainly answer any questions that you may have about them, but we won't go into specific detail about each of those. With that, with goal 1, I'll kick it over to Dr. Schleifer.
So I think just in the interest of sort of clarity, we've got sort of chunks of measures in Goal 1. In Goal 1, we've got a set of academic achievement measures, and then we've got some other process measures and things that the board knew we were going to accomplish, but they were more process-oriented. So I think we'll take the achievement ones first. Those are 1.1 through 1.4. So 1.1 and 1.2 in some ways are fairly straightforward, and in other ways are a little bit complex. As we talked about when we set those measures, we are using the ECRIS system, which is an internal growth model that ECRA Group predicts for us. They use a regression model. They use individual students' past performance to project future achievement. Now, in the model, their rigorous growth projection, and every year, I think we talked about this at the beginning of this year, the way that they project it, the rigorous projection, is that 84% of students will meet or exceed their growth projection. That's not 84% of students meeting a benchmark of proficiency. That's with each student's rigorous growth projection. So Dr. Budzinski's, Mrs. Lombard's, each of them would meet their own growth projection. And again, the percentage of students across districts that ECRA Group works with, 84% of students meeting or exceeding is a rigorous goal. That's what ECRA recommended to us. I think we've together taken on rigorous goals. We're happy we approached it. We were at 83 for both English language arts and for math. Those are listed in the no column. Those are things that we've already started going over with our principals. What I will tell you is that when we look at the breakdown, this isn't public information at this point. We will be doing a data presentation a little bit later into October as we did last year. But essentially what we do is we break down grade levels and buildings, and we start to look for where are those places that we exceeded expectations by and large, and where are places that we need some additional attention. What's a good trend is that the areas that we focused over the past year based on prior need are areas that grew strongly. And so that's, I think, just the continuous improvement process, is to continue drilling down through our school improvement plans at the building level to say, where are the large areas in building X that we need to improve? And then even further into the team level, the classroom level, and the skill level. So those are things that at the district we wouldn't be necessarily presenting as a big picture part of the strategic plan, but it is part of our improvement process. It's how we approach meeting these goals. So both of those, if we had an approaching column, that would be nice, but we don't. We have an incomplete or complete. They were 83, and the goal was 84. So there's definitely some areas of celebration within that, and definitely some areas for improvement. For our subgroup goals, and our subgroups that we have focused on, over the past several years, our students, they are English learners. Unfortunately, the state chooses to refer to them as limited English proficient, which is not a fantastic title, but that's what the state calls them. So our English learners is what you see there as LEP, and then our students with IEP. And so those two subgroups are unique among our subgroups, and I'm just going to kind of share this because it's an interesting way to think about it. So we have subgroups that we track from state data. African American students, well, white students are a subgroup, right, because it's an ethnic group. We have other ethnic groups. We have our Hispanic students. We have low-income students. The only two subgroups that exist in the state tracking that are subgroups only because of learning challenges are English learners and IEP students. So a student that is in a subgroup based on ethnicity, there is no reason other than the ethnicity that they're in the subgroup. A student who's an English learner is only in the subgroup until they stop being an English learner and test out of the program because they're exceeding. So when we look at those subgroups, it's a different challenge to help them succeed in looking at that gap than it is if it's a student that's in a subgroup based on ethnicity. We are extremely proud that with our English learners, what you see there is the LEP subgroup. We looked at several measures. We looked at our K through 8 reading English language arts, which is the umbrella, our K through 8 math, and then our grade 11 English language arts and our grade 11 math. And we are very excited that we met our measures in that area. If you recall, that was an area of very strong focus, especially at our middle school level. We have some very high areas of growth in those students, especially in certain buildings and certain levels. So that is a large celebration. I think the other thing I just want to spotlight with that, because I think it's just a source of great pride, especially to our teachers, to our principals, is that 3 years ago we did a review of our English learner services. That's what resulted in our dual language program. And when you see the systematic improvements we're putting in place, we're seeing results from those. And so that's very, very exciting. For our students with IEPs, there's a little bit of a twist in how we built the measures this time, which is that there's really those 4 measures in one. And as you see in the linked report, we actually met the measure in math for our students with IEPs. We did not in English language arts, but because we lumped all the 4 measures into one, that column is either an all or nothing. And so because we had some meeting and some not, that is listed as incomplete. But again, areas of celebration, definitely areas of growth. I can tell you that, especially with Dr. Del Castillo coming in to look at our special services, we have our new special education director. They're definitely hitting the ground running, looking at some review situations related to our students with IEP. And also continuing to look at what we need to do to continue improving with our English learners. A little preview is that, just like we did last year, we get to that very tense time in October when the state starts to release performance designations. You'll hear me coming back with those very exciting presentations that are complicated about all these indicators the state is looking at, and we'll do a refresher on that this year. So we're really, really hopeful in looking at when we get all of those indexes and indicators back that we'll get some good news. We haven't quite got enough information back from the state yet. We're still finalizing that data. So those together are our academic achievement measures. Like I said, we set rigorous goals. We honestly looked at what we need to improve. Some celebrations, some areas of improvement, which we would expect. And then we go forward with our rigorous school improvement plans and pushing to keep getting better. So With that, maybe just take a few questions if there are any on those measures, since they're sort of similar to each other. With goal 1, the only thing I would highlight is just that any measure for which you already heard a board report, like Dr. Rose said, for example, CTE review, the different curriculum reviews, it just references the board report because it's already been reported out. For any other one, there is a detailed report attached if you'd like to look more at the background, recommendations for the future. And some of those I think will be relevant as we come back to next month looking at what our future measures are. But I don't think there's any need to highlight. I think we're really, really proud of progress and just the work that the team is doing.
All right. Goal 2 is the learning environment. Again, most all of these were presented to you in goals prior or in presentations prior to today. There are 2 that I want to highlight. I'll hand it over to Jessica so she can highlight our restorative practices work.
So as you recall, we have started training our staff in restorative practices, and restorative practices really looks at how are we building relationships and repairing relationships within the school, or it could be school and community, and really trying to get the students to understand how their actions impact others, and then how do they go and repair those, and really looking at that empathy component. You ask kids at a really young age, why'd you do that? I don't know, and so it's really changing the questions that we ask so that they can think about, if I've done harm by saying something to Julie, how did that make her feel? How does it make me feel? And how do we fix that? And really building that culture and that relationship within our classrooms, and then school-wide, which will then be district-wide. And so when you look at the restorative practices, it can be a set of a framework that can be done kind of more informally in the classroom, and then you can do a more systemic school-wide component of that. And so the high school actually was the first group that was during the 17-18 school year that started looking into this and training some staff on that. And then in July of 2018, we trained, we had 2 separate trainings and trained 80 of our staff members. All of our administrators have been trained. And then during the school year last year, when we had our 2-day institute, it's a 2-day training is the first training. All of our counselors and social workers, which also would have a heavy impact once you're starting to look more at the school-wide approach of implementation, were also trained. With that, and hearing the excitement from those who've been trained, it's really teachers. We had a waiting list this year. We had 2 sessions where we brought in 40 staff members each session, so we had another 80 staff members trained this summer. But just it's growing from within. It's that organic. We're hearing, wow, I'm seeing what you're doing in the classroom. I'm seeing the small changes that are happening kind of day by day, because it is going to be small changes as we're seeing that to go forward. So right now, when you look at the measure and the understanding of that, it's more observational and perceptual data, and hopefully we'll start to see that data going forward on changes of practices and then changes of behavior in the classroom and in the school setting. So we're going to move towards that systemic approach to that, but teachers are excited. We see at the elementary level, a lot of our teachers are doing group lessons where they're all sitting around before all the learning is happening. It really ties in with our social emotional component of having this group where they're talking about what are they going to be doing, how's the culture in our classroom, are there things that you'd like to talk about. A lot of it at the beginning of the year started with the teacher addressing things, and in some of our upper grades at the elementary, where kids would say, I think we need to have a circle, and what was going on, and they'd kind of talk about what might be happening in the classroom and how do we restore that and how do we build that culture moving forward. As I said, they have these question cards, and they're just really simple questions when you're talking about a situation that might be happening between 2 students, or it could be 2 staff members, it could be a student and a staff member, it could be a group of kids, and how you ask those questions really gets them to start thinking about that empathy component of that. And so last year they had a training at a staff meeting with what those questions mean at Martin, and all of the teachers were given those cards, and they kind of put them in their lanyards. And as you saw the power of just how to ask that, it really started to get kids to start thinking about components. So a lot of different modeling things for our students. Administrators started doing, counselors, social workers, these restorative practice circles with small groups or even 2 students together on that. We always ask the parents if it's a bigger situation, if there's something where I'm feeling uncomfortable, Julie, we want to make sure that that parent is okay that these kids are in a restorative circle with one another. But as I said, some of it's kind of just how they're feeling in the classroom, and at that point, if they're having that circle in the classroom, we're not reaching out for the parent permission because it's that whole class setting. But we really are excited about how to see this go to that next level, more district wide. So McCabe is next year going to look at how do we embed this with our PBIS and our social emotional. And we did find a conference nearby that is a couple days throughout the year, and their administration and one of their teachers and myself will be going to look at that, and how do we take the different components that we have and blend those together to make a really positive environment for our students. And then we'll kind of take what we've learned from that and share that with our other buildings. Each of the teams now, they have teams within their buildings. You don't just have 1 or 2 teachers trained. There's a cohort of teachers who have been trained who our administrators and that team will sit down and how can I implement? What do we need at Heinemann? What do we need at the high school? What do we need at Conley? It might look a little different as it rolls out, but again, it's what does that school and what does the student need for that? And then one idea that has popped up, we've seen that in different schools. It's something we'll research a little bit about as kind of that peer mediation or those juries, peer juries that are at the schools, or sometimes it's a little bit harder. We've seen that in neighboring districts where those peer juries they have multiple high schools, and so it's not just their students doing it for their own, but could we implement something like that with our high school and our middle schools, and seeing the power that could come from something with that. So we're really, really excited about how this has grown and how staff members are wanting to learn more about this and make the changes in their classrooms. So I would say we've met this goal, and we'll continue to see this enhance and grow. So any questions that any of you have on this one?
The only thing that I would add is I had the opportunity I was one of the first group of administrators trained at the high school 3 years ago. It is hands down one of the best, most practical, implement now trainings that I've attended. And I had the opportunity this last year to sit in on a circle in one of our kindergarten classrooms at Chesapeake. And then it was really cool to see the impact that Mary Riley had on our fellow Chesapeake teachers, because the rest of the kindergarten team from Chesapeake was in our summer training. And I saw circles happen today as they kicked off the school year, which was really neat. I had a teacher reach out to me this week actually asking what the administrative implementation plan was for restorative practices in the district, because she'd like to help advance it. And I think it's difficult for people to wrap their heads around. It's recommended, and in looking at this needs to be organic. So having a full-scale implementation plan of this is how we're going to do it this year, and then this year, and then this year, it'll actually kill the movement. It needs to be organic from teachers. We want this, we want to implement it in our classroom to infiltrate the culture, and that's what we're doing. We're committed to that. I'm really excited to see the constant request, when's the next one I want to sign up. So it's been very positive, and I'm really excited that we've embraced it and our teachers have welcomed it. Next in this list that you haven't received a specific report from is the Superintendent Advisory. You've heard me talk about it throughout the year. I'll actually touch on all 3 of the different goals that this advisory lived in. And there were 3 levels of this advisory: a student advisory for the middle schools and the high school, and then a staff advisory, an elementary group and a high school group, or a secondary group, and then a parent advisory, again, an elementary and a secondary group. And Ms. Melindy attended The vast majority of those in her schedule allowed, and she's welcome to add on to anything at the conclusion of my comments. It was extremely positive for me. The original purpose was to gain some insight from a new position as to what the district looks like to many different of our stakeholder groups. I felt that I was very in tune with the student perspective coming from the high school principalship, and what I learned from the students, the student leaders who were in attendance at these meetings, and of course I recognize it was not all corners of our student body, but those who were in attended the meetings. I was very encouraged at a few things. One, the pride that they have as being a member of our school district, how comfortable they feel with the resources that they have available, and the vast number of opportunities that we provide for our students. So obviously, like as I said, I recognize that this advisor did not reach every corner of our student population. All of our students don't feel that way, but I do feel it was a pretty representative feeling of pride, opportunity, and resources that are there. One of the things I think we can do a better job of as a district is ensuring our students know where those resources are and make them so easily accessible that they feel more comfortable reaching out for them. That was very positive as always. I enjoy spending time with our students. Our teachers was extremely beneficial. I had the opportunity to look into the world of elementary on a much more intimate level with our teachers than I had as a middle and high school principal. And I think the outcome of the superintendent advisory for our staff for me was creating something that was really important to me, which is two-way communication at all levels. And I believe that we accomplished that. There was very candid and open conversation about where we're headed as a district from us, presentations from administration of things that we're working on, things that are in the works, where we'd like to go, from e-learning days to the concept of parent communication, to what competency-based education is and where the future of education, I believe, is taking us. But then they also had the opportunity to add their own agenda items and brought things to the table in terms of culture in the building, the feeling of being burned out, what does my plate is too full actually mean to them, and how can we begin chipping away at some of those things. I received a lot of very positive feedback from those individual teachers as well as paraprofessionals about the transparency and the open ear that they received. It was really rewarding for me, and it's something that I intend to do again, whether it's a strategic planning measure or just a matter of practice. And then finally, the parent advisory was extremely beneficial, and actually we became very fruitful in terms of the change that we made in the district. The feedback we received from parents at the very first meeting was, we love the district, but we're overwhelmed with the communication mechanisms and apps that parents or that teachers are using to communicate with parents. If I have a third grader, a fourth grader, and a fifth grader, that could be 3 different apps that I have to download and then monitor, and I feel like I'm missing something. So through that information, we then brought that back to administration and worked with our teachers, and through the adoption of Otis, have a singular communication point that all teachers are using beginning this year with parents. If it's not an email or newsletter, it'll come through that Otis communication. And that's something I'm really excited for our parents. I'm looking to ask some of them for that feedback on how that's been received. I say keep your ears open to that as you engage with parents in the communities of the change we just instituted. But all in all, we were able to present the concept of delayed start, the concept of e-learning days to parents, and have real quality two-way communication with them as well. It was extremely beneficial for me to connect with people I had not had the opportunity to meet with before, but then also just hear from different corners of the community their perceptions of the school district. Again, very proud of the district they live in, and very proud of the opportunities we provide for our students. But a couple of minor things did bubble up that we had some very healthy dialogue about, and we were able to educate them. And Dan would say in the meetings, we're hoping that you then take this information and share with your circles that two-way communication is important to us. We welcome the feedback, and then if people have questions, avenues that they can take to reach out and connect with the school district. So as I said, it's not going to be a 1920 strategic planning measure. because we'll be engaged in the strategic planning process of setting the new plan, which will be extremely active in terms of community engagement. But this is something I intend to bring back once that new plan is set for 2021, as I enjoy it very much. Leslie, I don't know if you have any other comments to make.
No, I agree with what you said, and I was really pleased with how open and honest our conversations were in that room. And for me, who's been in the community for 20 years, there are parents that I did not know and that are new, and I enjoyed kind of seeing the new vision and how they react to our schools. And I thought we did have some very frank discussions, and some good ideas came out of it, and I hope we do that, not only for the parents, but the teachers as well. And I liked that they felt comfortable talking about concerns and things that they are thinking about. So I think it's a great program. I think we definitely need to continue it with different sectors of teachers and community members. Mm-hmm.
All right, and with that, we'll take any questions on Goal 2. All right, if none exists, we'll move on to Goal 3, and I'll kick it over to Mr. Zaire, Quality Staff.
Sure. For Goal 3, I'm always looking to increase the diversity in our staff in order to mirror that of our student population, and I'm sharing some statistics in that memo comparing 17-18 to 18-19, where we've increased the number of diverse staff members that we brought on board, not only in number but percentage-wise too. So that is there for your review. A lot of credit of that goes to our dual language program and the recruiting we're doing in a very large circle across this country, other countries, and bringing individuals into the dual language program. So we'll continue to work in our recruiting process to increase the diversity of our staff in order to mirror those students that are out there.
Any other questions on Goal 3? Otherwise, everything else you've seen within the presentation. Okay, if there are none, then we'll move on to Goal 4. Mr. Armstrong.
Goal 4, I'll be brief. Several good outcomes in terms of partnerships with home and community. One that was particularly nice for me was the establishment of Huntley Parent University. We held 2 successful Parent University events, one on dual language, which was a big and bilingual education, where we had a great national expert come in, and that was very well attended. And then in the second semester, we did a very timely one on vaping. And I have to tell you, I learned a lot from that personally. We brought in experts from Northwestern Medicine, from Lakeland Hills Police, and the McHenry County Substance Abuse Coalition. That was, and I would say, proving the merit of this effort. Both events were very well attended, both in person and then viewed over 250 times online, because we put the video up online afterwards. So I thought those were very good numbers for initial efforts, and we're going to look to do several more of those this year, taking in feedback on what parents want to learn about through the various two-way communication efforts that we have underway. Another strong year for volunteerism, over 2,000 volunteers in our schools again, which is just a great number. In particular, supporting those high school pathways, including Incubator. I believe we've met our recruitment goals for Incubator partners from the local business community, so we have a strong roster of those individuals coming in to help our students this year, which is extremely exciting. And also very successful in our efforts to present at high visibility conferences. We far exceeded our goal for that, and also another strong showing in terms of positive coverage in reputation enhancing external media outlets. We've done very well there as well. So if anyone has any questions about any of those great successes, I will be happy to take them.
Okay, and then finally, Goal 5, Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much. I really love this goal. No
I hope so.
surprise. Yeah, this is a good goal. This goal is to prioritize and allocate resources effectively and equitably while operating and continuing to operate with increased efficiencies. We've got numerous measures here. Many of these measures have been reported already that we've obtained and surpassed these measures utilizing the fiscal year 18 AFR, but we'll still quickly go through those. Just for reference, 5.1 measure through 5.5 measures are really financial measures simply to ensure that the district continues to maintain a strong financial position and, of course, while striving to continue to improve its financial position. So we can quickly go through these. Measure 5.1, year-end audited fund balances must be at over 25% of operating budget. That is a policy that we have. Utilizing the FY18 AFR, we are sitting at 37.3%. For your reference. 5.2, operating expenditures per pupil will continue to be at least 20% lower than the state average. The state average, utilizing last year's AFR and last year's state average per the report card, is 13,337, while we're sitting at 10,570, which is 26.2% below that state average. Measure 5.3, the district will maintain state recognition status. Again, using last year's FY18 AFR, we actually improved our rating, and it's on a scale from 1 to 4, from 3.8 in FY17 to 3.9 in FY18, and that is the 6th straight year for which we have been at recognition status. Just completing the FY19 audit, we expect to be there again. 5.4, the measure is district will maintain a AA bond rating. We put that in there because we knew we were going to actually do a debt refunding, and when we do a debt refunding, we do get rated by a rating agency. Again, we were rated at AA status. I think we all remember we tried to improve our rating, as we have been significantly improving our financial position, but not enough to move the needle on that rating. If you recall, we went from Standard & Poor's rating agency, and we switched to Moody's, hoping that they would see things a little differently, but they saw things the same. So good news is we're still AA, but the opportunity is we would like to be AAA because we do have a mountain of debt in fiscal year 22 of approximately $70 million for which we will need to refund. So stay tuned on that. Measure 5.5 is just continuing to update our 5-year plan with various scenarios, which we have done this past year with the last 3 budget presentations. Measure 5.6, the district will institute wellness programs, initiatives, and screenings in an effort to improve our employees' health and wellness. And as you recall, over the last 2 years, we have done wellness screenings. And with regard to that, let me just throw out some numbers for you if you haven't had a chance to read the detail. In 2017, we had 458 participants go through the screening. Last year, we had 468 participants go through that screening. And approximately 73% of all participants who repeated the screening in 2018 achieved their goals as recommended by their personal health evaluation report, which is kind of what we're looking for, right? We're looking for our employees to take control of their own health and wellness so that we can hopefully in the future drive down costs to themselves as well as costs to the overall health plan of the district. So with that, we feel we met that goal as well. 5.7, district will implement energy savings opportunities from LED lighting to solar. I think we all know where we are with solar. Good news is we had a couple meetings with the villages today, and it looks like hopefully, knock on wood, pending ROE approval and a few other steps we need to take, that solar will be up and running, and hopefully we'll have a groundbreaking in middle to late September. On the LED side during the year, Doug and his team did a great job implementing LED lighting at both Conley and McCaben, and so next year, even this year, we're starting to see savings as a result of that additional work that we did there. And the last goal is 5.8. The district will substantially support the Vanguard vision necessary to support its success in modeling our personalized learning initiative. As we all know, Vanguard vision is in its 2nd year and was fully supported, certainly from a financial perspective. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on Goal 5.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Altmeyer. So with that, before I turn it back over for Mr. Fleck, And as I mentioned, we met 91% of those measures. We're extremely proud of that. We don't just set these measures with the expectation that we meet 100% of them. That would be an indication that we're not setting lofty enough goals. Meeting 91% of them, I'm extremely proud because I know we did not set goals that were checkbox, easily attainable goals. These were major initiatives that we put into motion. And in fact, the measures that you're going to see at the September CAL when we present the 1920 measures are next steps from these major lifts that we've begun. So that 91% to me is a flag to wave over an extremely successful school year and a lot of hard work, from our administrative team and as well as our teachers and support staff who are linked to the strategic plan. We continually work to vertically align and embed this plan in our school improvement plans and down to the work of the classroom to genuinely let it drive our district. We continue to work on that. So our hope is always to get a little higher than 91% and meet all of our goals, but I'm very proud of this 91%. So with that, administration recommends that the board accept and approve the achievement of these measures.
All right. Any overarching questions? All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the strategic plan 2018-2019 report as presented. Second from Ms. Melendi. This is calling for a roll call.
Mrs. Melendi? Yes. Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Fleck?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much for all the hard work on putting that together, the presentation. I'm going to go 23.2 back to Mr. Altmeyer for supplemental purchase orders and supplemental accounts payable. Nothing to highlight? Any questions on these? Okay. Then I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental purchase orders and accounts payable as listed in the agenda.
Second.
I give that one to Mr. Guerin. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Fleck?
Yes. Mrs.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Okay, that motion carries. Thought exchange agreement, Dr. Rowe.
Okay, as a reminder from the committee of the whole meeting, Thought Exchange is a different type of communication tool where we seek to engage the community on a deeper level where they're able to provide their own ideas to generate thoughts and suggestions for how to achieve those thoughts that may be different and different than what we put forth. Proposing that the board allow us to enter this agreement paid for with our title grant and use this as a part of the strategic planning process, as well as other internal opportunities to gain feedback from our staff in a way that we have not tried before.
We went over this before, so is there any questions, comments on this? Okay. Well then, I will make a motion to approve the thought exchange agreement as presented. Second from Ms. Melendi. No? Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Fleck?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. On to Fine Arts Edition construction bids. Mr. Rankowski. Any questions? All right. Well then with that, I will make a motion to approve the award of the bids that are presented as stated in the recommendation letter from LAMP and presented for tonight's meeting. First, second? Second from Mr. Guerin. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano? Mrs. Melendi? Mrs. Maiorino? Mr. Fleck?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. I think, you're still up, Mr. Rinkosik, for a few. We got change orders for the Fine Arts Division. Any questions on this? We've done this before on other projects. Okay. With that, I will make a motion to approve the change order process as presented. Second. Okay, second from Mr. Guerin. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Fleck?
Yes. Okay, that motion carries. And then on to thermosystems, Mr. Rinkosik. Questions? So the last comment you made, I'm assuming you're addressing the part that says excludes hot water control valves. Okay, so that's already covered in another bid. So, that was my only question. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal for the HVAC system as presented. Second from, was that Mr. Troy? Yes. Okay. Let's have a roll call.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Fleck?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. And SSR Commission Agent. Mr. Rinkosik. questions on this? Okay. Then I will make a motion to approve the SSR Commission Agent Agreement as presented. Second from Mr. Troy. Roll call.
Mrs. Maiorino. Mr. Fleck.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi. Mr. Guerin.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Moves on to item 24. Do we have any public comment? Mr. Armstrong.
I believe we do not.
Okay. Still being no public comment, then at 8:14, I will make a motion to adjourn. Second from Ms. Melendi. Yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.